I unbarred the door at first light and nearly tripped over the cedar cradle on my step. A young woman sat beside it, coat stiff with frost, a pale scar crossing her throat like a healed rope burn. She didn't speak. She lifted a paper and tapped it with shaking fingers. In block letters, "She belongs to Lance." My name. No one up here used it, not in years. The baby inside the cradle opened her fist around a leather necklace I knew too well. Preacher Hale's cross from town. Why was it here? Why her?
Lance carried the cradle in first, then reached back for the woman. She stood on her own, unsteady from the night. He smelled smoke in her hair, not perfume, just the sour trace of a burned fire somewhere below the timberline. He pointed to the chair near the hearth. She sat, hands tight around a gray shawl. Snow hissed at the door seams. The room warmed slow. "Name?" Lance asked. She met his eyes and tapped her throat. The scar told the rest. She slipped a folded scrap from her pocket and wrote with a short pencil, "Adriana." Then below it, "Help." He set coffee on the table and pushed it toward her. The baby stirred. The little fist still held the leather cross, dark with oil and years. Lance rubbed his thumb over the edge and felt the notch he remembered from a fight near the river long ago. Preacher Hale's temper, his ring catching on the leather. That cross didn't travel by accident. Adriana scribbled again, "They will come." Then, after a breath, he sold her. Who? She wrote father, then Hale. Lance looked at the cradle, at the small face settled under the wool, and at the paper that said the child belonged to him. His chest tightened in a way he had not allowed since his brother died in the storm on Cedar Ridge. He pushed the thought aside. He checked the Winchester, laid kindling, and fed the hearth. Silence sat heavy, not a threat yet, just weight. Outside, wind drove ice through the pines. He banked the fire and said, "You're safe here." He meant for the moment. He didn't yet know what the town would do when they learned she had climbed to him. By noon, the sky cleared to hard blue. Tracks below the ridge told of 3 horses and a wagon cutting toward the creek. Lance watched through spruce, breath steady. Adriana stood behind him, shawl tight, trying to see without breaking cover. The baby slept. A bell clanged faint from town. News moved fast when it smelled like trouble. He saw Hale first. Black coat, silver hair, riding with Sheriff Calder and 2 ranch hands. The wagon held crates, a canvas bundle, and a coil of chain. Lance felt his jaw set. They stopped at the river ford. Calder raised a hand. "Lance," his voice carried. "We've had a theft. Crossing cash from the church strongbox. A woman ran. You seen anyone?" Lance stepped out slow. Just the usual deer and wind. Hale's eyes moved like a knife. "A cradle print up the trail," he said. "And tracks. Yours." Lance didn't answer. He held the sheriff's gaze, then tipped his head toward the broken bridge. Storm ate half the planks. No wagon makes it up. Calder shifted in the saddle. "We'll come on foot later." Town stirred. You know how it gets. He nodded at the necklace barely showing from Lance's pocket. "Mind if I—" Lance tucked it deeper. "I do mind." They rode off with faces like doors closing. Lance returned to the cabin and barred the door. Adriana had written more, the words crammed to the edges. Not theft. Payment. He took money to sell the baby. "I took the money back." Lance read it twice. The room felt smaller. Outside, the cold sharpened. The silence between them turned from wait to signal. Move before the next knock. Night pressed in early. Lance split wood by the doorway, measuring each stroke. Adriana moved slow, tending the kettle, learning the room. When the baby fussed, Adriana held her with a practiced hold that said she had done this before. She did not cry, not once. The quiet had its own voice. Lance set a small board on the table and pushed the pencil toward her. "Tell it clean," he said. "All of it." She wrote in a careful line, "Hale promised my father land if he placed unwanted infants. He took women who had no say." She stopped, jaw tight, then added, "I was meant to be proof." Scars for Lance steadied the board with 2 fingers. "This child yours?" Adriana shook her head. She wrote, "Marta's." She hid her. "Hale made a deal with a trader beyond the river. I took the cross from the strongbox after I saw the paper. I took the baby. Why bring her here?" Lance asked. Adriana hesitated, then drew a small cedar tree, rough but clear. and beneath it scribbled a single word: brother. Lance sat back. His brother Jonas had carved a cedar on the butt of his rifle, on the doorframe, even on the old ring he whittled for a girl he never married. The mark was common to no one else. Adriana fished in her coat and held up a small box. Inside lay a worn wooden ring, carved with a cedar tree. She tapped her chest. Then pointed to the ring. Then to Lance. "Jonas is dead," Lance said, voice low. "Storm on Cedar Ridge." Adriana swallowed and wrote, "He saved me before that. Taught me to climb to this cabin if I ever had no one." The fire popped. The truth shifted the room. The past reached in, quiet as snow. Boots on crusted snow came at dawn. No horses this time. Lance put Adriana and the baby in the small root cellar and set the table like a man eating alone. He left the Winchester by the hearth, easy to reach. The knock was brisk. Calder and Hale stepped in without waiting. Frost steamed from their coats. 2 ranch hands lingered at the door. Calder's eyes moved over the room. "We're cold," he said, as if that excused the trespass. "Town's anxious. Hale says you found something of his." Hale's gaze fixed on the hearth, then the cradle by the chair. "We'll take what was stolen." Lance stood between them and the cradle. "Nothing here is yours." Hale took a step. "That woman is a thief. That child is property in a contract." The word turned Lance's stomach. He opened the small box and set the wooden ring on the table. "You remember my brother?" Hale's face changed a shade. "That vagrant?" Lance slid a folded paper across. Adriana had written it through the night, naming dates, Hale's visits, the traders. At the bottom, a line Jonas had carved years ago into his rifle stock appeared again, etched by Adriana's steady hand. A cedar tree. Lance lifted the kettle with a towel and poured slow. Steam rose. The ranch hands watched, uncertain. Calder read. He didn't look at Hale first. He looked at the chain on the wagon coil memory in his head, at Hale's quick temper, at the town's girls who had vanished to aunties far away. His jaw moved once. "Hale?" Hale lunged for the cradle. Lance caught his wrist and drove him into the table. The ring clinked to the floor. The ranch hands reached, then stopped when Calder barked. "Enough!" Silence hit hard, then held. Calder's voice dropped. "We settle this in town. Proper." He looked at the baby. "The child stays. With us," Lance said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The room decided with him. The fire, the ring, the written names. Calder nodded once. The walk to town cut through bright cold. People drifted from doors as they passed, faces tight, lips set, whispers banking along Main Street like dust. The church bell hung silent. Calder led. Hale trailed with wrists bound in a scarf. His breath smoked fast. Inside the schoolhouse, bigger than the church and warmer, Calder set the papers on the teacher's desk and read them out. Plain. Names, exchanges, the coil of chain from the wagon. The cross, a list of infants placed. Marta stepped forward, shoulders shaking, and identified her child by a birthmark on the heel. She touched the cradle and did not let go. Hale tried to speak over it all, but his voice broke when he saw who had come to stand in the doorway. 3 mothers, 2 ranch hands' wives, the blacksmith's sister. They did not shout. They just stood. Calder removed Hale's preacher pin and set it on the desk. "You'll ride to the fort and answer there," he said. No cheer followed. The room let out a long breath. By dusk, Lance, Adriana, and Marta sat near the stove in the schoolhouse while women traded shifts holding the baby. Adriana leaned her head to the wall, eyes closed. Silence, for once, felt like a blanket, not a threat. Lance took Jonas's cedar ring from the small box and turned it in his palm. He carved a second ring that night by the stove, steady strokes, no flourish, and held it out to Adriana. "No hurry," he said. "But stay." She slid the ring on and nodded, eyes wet. She lifted the gray shawl and wrapped it around both of them as the baby slept. Outside, snow started again, soft and real. In the morning, Lance would carry lumber to build a new cradle, one with a cedar tree cut into the rail. The town would look and judge, then learn. The hearth would hold. and the silence between them would change into something they both understood.